Okay, so this is a take two. Oh, Megan's Adventures in Technology. Anyway, let's keep going. Based on today's topic, I am going to really investigate the frame that continues to allow this to occur. So today, on mostly Mondays with Meg's podcast, I am going to be talking about the power of frame. And at the power, it's really everything, like everything that is coming into your life, every result you're creating is coming in part, or what part of it you can perceive or see really depends on your frame. Your perception is another way to say that. Okay. So if you have, for instance, right, so a frame in a picture, right, a frame in a picture holds the picture in place. It frames it, it holds it together, right? And so the frames of our lives hold certain scenarios in place, if that makes sense. Um, so one frame could be on the negative side, right? Like all men are mean, right? Or all women are mean. No, I'm going to be equal opportunity here. All they thems are mean, right? So if that is your frame, then everything that comes into that frame has to match it in some way. So if you have something in your life that you either really like or don't like, either way, it's really based on the frame. So there was this show on 60 Minutes about 10 or 15 years ago called Is Luck a Thing, right? And what they did was they took this control group of people that thought they were lucky and a control group of people that didn't think they were lucky. And they hid prizes, money all over the place. And they went on a treasure hunt. Everybody went on a treasure hunt. And guess what? The people who thought they were lucky found all the prizes. The people who decidedly were not lucky didn't find any of the prizes. And so that's a really, really great example. Besides looking at luck in a different way, it's a really great example of the power of our frame. When I first was starting my business 28 years ago, I was about to go get a job because I hadn't made more than about $200 a month in the entire year and was maxed out my cards and all this stuff. I ended up having a session with this really cool master NLP practitioner, and I discovered that I had this frame called Men Make the Money. Now, I would have never, ever, ever believed that I had that belief. So some of the frames are conscious and some of the frames are not conscious, because I was raised with the idea that men and women, or boys and girls, had the same possibilities. However, my dad made the money and my mom stayed at home and raised the babies. And so in my brain, what I was pickled in was men make the money. So that was my frame. And when I saw that and it changed, I made $4,500 in the next 3 months. This is the power of frames. I'm telling you guys, like, if there's stuff that is not changing in your life, it's because of the frame you're using to hold it together. And again, frame another word could be your points of view, your perceptions, your beliefs. That's how you're framing a thing, either consciously or unconsciously. So a really, really good coach, this is what we do. We help you craft new frames. We help you see. We're very adept at helping you open the door to see something different than what you've been seeing before. So recently I had this client who I noticed that she was using the word broken with regards to her children. And I asked her if she thought her children were incapable. And she says, no, they're so brilliant, they're bright. And I said, well, it's interesting that you use the word broken. And she just she didn't even realize she was using that word, right? And I said, well, if they're broken, then what's required? Well, then I have to fix them all the time. So that frame not only saw them in a particular way, but she had to kind of always be in ER mode with her children because of seeing them in that way. And it was so beautiful just to see her whole face change and her whole reality change in this nanosecond of changing a frame and going, no, my children are capable. I don't need to be on call 24/7. Like it was just, and I mean, we literally have thousands of these things, you guys. And I think that one of the beautiful things about being on planet Earth and being part of this magnificent universe is the universe is always giving us feedback about um, what we're consciously and unconsciously asking for, how we're framing our reality. And the universe is like, are you sure? I used to give this example years ago in my life skills class. I always said, and for you youngins, you might not know who Ed McMahon is, but Ed McMahon used to be part of this sort of millionaire giveaway thing, and he would show up at people's doors with, a check for $1 million. And what I know is that if you really believe that there's no such thing as the gifts or good things happening, and somebody knocks at your door at 10 o'clock at night, because he often would, you might come out with a shotgun instead of understanding that because your frame is the world is bad, the world is scary, the world is. And so you're responding constantly to that frame. So you might, take your gun out and scare the $1 million away if you're not careful of your frame. Every single time that you're in a situation where there's sort of a Groundhog Day component to it, it's because you're holding very unsuccessful frames that is requiring others to show up in a particular way and requiring you to show up in a particular way in reaction to the other. So, what are the frames that are holding you back? What are the frames that are less than useful for you right now? So, how do we change frames? Well, one of the best ways to change frames is to actually hire yourself a good coach, because it's very, very hard to see your own frames, especially if they're in the unconscious, or what I would say in the illogical mind. We're oftentimes looking for the logical frames, but most of the frames that keep us stuck are illogical and part of the sort of the insane mind. So getting help, getting support, getting other eyes on you are really useful. If you'd like to start out just really looking at this for yourself, I would invite you to take a situation that you're in right now, like something that's less than fun. It's a little bit Groundhog Day-ish. Like, I don't know, it's like no matter what I do, money stays the same, or like you're noticing that um, there's the same conflict that keeps showing up with your daughter or whatever, right? And the question that I want you to ask is, what frame or frames are holding this situation in place? How am I seeing this that is creating it to be sticky in my life? Right? And so how you kind of start to sort that out as you look at the result it's creating. Okay. Whatever result that's occurring in your life, you either have a conscious or unconscious commitment or series of choices and frames that are holding that in place. So to start getting underneath it, you want to look at the results. So it's like, oh yeah, my husband is ignoring me again. Okay, cool. What frame? It's like, what is it that requires your husband, or men, as the case may be, to ignore you? Where does that come from? Right? Where does that come from? After years and years and years of this, I'm going to say that there was a significant male probably in your life that ignored you. Right? And so that became, it's like when our mom and dad did something, and this was our frame for love, then we actually go, oh, love equals this behavior. Love equals being ignored, or men are always going to ignore me. And we may have a frame underneath this because, when we were little, say dad worked all the time or something. When you're little, you're egocentric, meaning that everything goes through the channel of you. So mom and dad are fighting, your fault. Dad's working too much, must not love you. Like we get into these frames really before we're conscious of it. And so part of this is being really compassionate with yourself and going, okay, what frame is holding this in place? Not like in a beat up way, but like, what is it? what is driving this particular result in my life right now? What is the result that it's creating? And how are my frames contributing to that result? Okay. So the other place to look, and because it's like, no, he really is ignoring me, Megan. I understand because he can't actually show up any other way given your frame. That's the only thing that can fit in the picture, right? One of the ways to really get underneath these frames, because a lot of us will fight to be right about these frames. No, this is true. This is how it is. This is the way it is. This is the way it's always been, right? But if you look at, when you ask yourself, is it a universal truth, a universal fact that men have to ignore me, right? When you look at that, and I invite you to look at it through the eyes of as constant as gravity, right? Which would mean it would impact everything and everyone. So gravity is a principle that's true. How do we know? It impacts all of us. We are all, whether we believe in gravity or not, we're all participating in this gravitational field, right? And actually, even flight, we had to acknowledge, until we understood gravity, we couldn't fly. Till we acknowledged that force field, we couldn't develop something that could go beyond the power of lift, the principle of lift, right? We couldn't have developed that without the awareness of gravity. So is it universally true? Is it a universal law that men have to ignore you? Probably not. And probably not every man does. Probably just your husband, right? And so when you start to do that, when you start to challenge the frame, you start to get information. Well, if that's actually not true, if that's actually not true, what else is possible? And you start opening to the possibility of it being different. Given the current situation with my husband ignoring me, what choices do I have? What power do I have to change this? What power do I have to change this frame? Now, I will tell you that sometimes you can change a frame by changing the behavior. Like I had a whole thing that went down with singing. I had to believe a frame that I couldn't sing. And I went to this voice coach, and I was able to match her tone instantly. And like it was so liberating to kind of bust out that can't, right? But because I hadn't fully changed the frame, I didn't now start singing, did I? Like I just was like, oh, that's cool. I thought I couldn't sing and I can, right? My experience is that you can change behavior, and most people are doing that. It's like, okay, you want to be healthy, just eat different. But if you have a particular frame called I'll always be fat, it actually kind of doesn't matter if you change too much of the behavior. You won't let yourself experience anything different. It does help sometimes to just challenge the behavior that you're doing. But ultimately, if you don't change the frame, it doesn't last. It doesn't last long term. So what are the frames that are holding you hostage right now? And um, what could you do to investigate and change and undo those for yourself? Again, if it's not universally true, meaning happening to everybody the same, then it's not true. It's simply a frame. And so what we want to do is we want to create frames that are more useful for us, frames that are helpful for us. So, you know, even the money doesn't grow on trees. And it's so crazy how many of us have that. How many of our parents told us that? What a stupid thing to tell us. But the truth is money does grow on trees, right? That's where money is printed on paper that comes from trees. Not in all countries, some countries is plastic, but in a certain way, it's like doing that and going, well, what if money grew on trees? What if money was as easy as breathing? And you start to question. It's not so much about faking a frame, but you start to question that that ongoing principle that you have made real and true that is not. And when you can start to create even a little bit of maybe that's not true, you open a space for a whole new frame. So please let me know. I'd love you to post on this. Let me know if you have questions. Let me know if you'd like me to go further on this topic. I will be meeting again next Monday, and I haven't chosen the topic, so we can go deeper on this or we can play with something else. But challenge your frames, my people. It will give you the biggest bang for your buck in terms of changing and creating a whole new reality for yourself. So Thanks for joining me today, and I will see you next Monday, same time, same bat channel.